My face dripped with vanilla buttercream as 300 wedding guests gasped in horror. Bradley, my daughter Sarah's new husband, stood there smirking, while his groomsmen laughed. "Try some dessert, beggar," he sneered, wiping his hands on a napkin. I'd driven 6 hours in my old pickup truck to walk Sarah down the aisle, only to be humiliated at the reception. What Bradley didn't know was that I'd been planning this moment for 3 months, ever since I overheard him on that fateful April evening. 3 months before that wedding day disaster, I was living my quiet life on a small ranch just outside Billings, Montana. The morning sun painted the mountains gold as I fixed a section of fence that the winter had damaged. My hands, once soft from years of typing code, had grown calloused from honest work. Most people who met me assumed I was just another old rancher scraping by, and that suited me just fine. The phone rang as I was heading back to the house. Sarah's name lit up the screen, and I smiled, despite the mud on my boots. "Dad, I have the most amazing news." Her voice bubbled with excitement. "Bradley proposed last night. We're getting married." I set down my toolbox and sat on the porch steps. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. You sound happy." "I am, oh Dad. He's everything I ever dreamed of. Successful, charming, from a good family. His father owns a pharmaceutical company. Can you believe it?" Something in my chest tightened, but I pushed it aside. Sarah was 35, smart as a whip with a successful marketing career. If she was happy, that's what mattered. "I want you to meet him properly," she continued. "Can you come to Denver this weekend? Bradley's taking us to dinner at his country club." "Of course I'll be there." That Saturday, I made the 5-hour drive in my old Ford pickup. The truck had seen better days, but she ran smooth and had never let me down. I'd bought her with cash the day after I sold my company TechCore Systems to a Silicon Valley giant for $3.2 billion. Nobody needed to know about that transaction, least of all the vultures who would circle if they knew. The Denver Country Club was exactly what you'd expect. Manicured lawns that probably drank more water than my entire ranch, a building that screamed old money, and a parking lot full of cars worth more than most people's houses. I parked between a Bentley and a Mercedes, my dusty truck looking like a donkey among thoroughbreds. Sarah met me at the entrance, radiant in a blue dress. She hugged me tight, then pulled back to look at my outfit. I'd worn my best jeans and a clean flannel shirt. "Oh, Dad," she said softly. I should have mentioned the dress code. But don't worry, Bradley won't mind. Bradley appeared moments later, and my first impression was calculated perfection. Tall, athletic build, probably late 30s, with that specific kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about money. His handshake was firm, his smile practiced. "Mr. Thompson, so good to finally meet you. Sarah talks about you constantly." "Clark, please. Good to meet you too, Bradley." His eyes swept over me, taking in every detail from my weathered boots to my Timex watch. Something flickered in his expression, gone so fast I almost missed it. Disdain. "Well, Clark, welcome to our little club. I hope you're hungry. The chef here trained at Le Bernardin." Dinner was an exercise in subtle condescension. Bradley ordered wine without asking preferences, chose appetizers for the table, and steered every conversation toward topics designed to highlight the gap between us. His work in high finance, his family's summer home in the Hamptons, the European vacation he was planning for Sarah. "What exactly did you do before retiring to—" He paused, searching for the word farming. "Ranching," I corrected. "And I worked with computers. Nothing as exciting as investment banking." Sarah squeezed my hand under the table. She'd never asked about the specifics of my old career, and I'd never offered. After the divorce from her mother, Margaret, I'd wanted simplicity, peace, truth. "Computers," Bradley repeated, the way you might say janitorial work. "Well, honest work is admirable. Not everyone can handle the pressure of real business." The evening dragged on. Bradley's friends from adjoining tables stopped by, all cut from the same cloth. Expensive suits, expensive watches, expensive laughs at my expense. Sarah grew quieter as the night progressed, her initial joy dimming. After dessert, I excused myself to find the restroom. The club was a maze of hardwood halls and oil paintings of dead rich men. I took a wrong turn and found myself near a private lounge. Voices carried through the partially open door. Bradley's voice. I should have walked away. Instead, I stopped and listened. She's perfect for the long game, Bradley was saying. Her mother's family has old railroad money. Not much, but enough. Plus, Sarah's got connections through her marketing firm that I can tap into. Another voice laughed. But what about the father, that hillbilly? Please, did you see him? Probably doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together. Sarah's already embarrassed by him. Give me 6 months after the wedding, and she'll cut him off completely. I'm good at isolating wives from problematic family members. My hand found my phone in my pocket. I pressed record. The prenup, someone asked. Already handled. Told her it was standard procedure for protecting my family's assets. She signed without reading. If things go south, she walks away with nothing. Just like Emma. Just like Jessica. You're a cold bastard, Bradley. I'm a smart bastard. Sarah's got maybe another 5 good years before she starts looking her age. I'll milk her connections, build my client base, then trade up to a younger model. It's just business. They all laughed. The sound made my stomach turn. What about the wedding? Another voice chimed in. Big show at the club. Her mother's pushing for fancy everything. I'll play along. Hell, I might even let the old man walk her down the aisle if he can find a suit. Can you imagine? It'll be hilarious. You going to invite him? Have to for appearances. But I'll make sure he knows his place. Stick him at the back table with the plus ones and distant cousins. Maybe have some fun with him during the reception. These tough guy ranchers always fold when they're out of their element. My phone captured every word, every cruel laugh, every detail of his plan to destroy my daughter's life. I made my way back to the table, my mind racing, but my face calm. 30 years in tech had taught me the value of patience, of gathering information before making moves, of letting arrogant men hang themselves with their own rope. Bradley stood as I approached. There you are, Clark. We were starting to worry. These old buildings can be confusing. Found my way eventually, I said, sitting back down. Sarah looked between us. Bradley was just telling me about the wedding venue. It's going to be right here at the club. Sounds beautiful, sweetheart. Bradley leaned back in his chair. Of course we'll make sure you're comfortable, Clark. I know this isn't exactly your usual environment. I appreciate that. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I hugged Sarah goodbye in the parking lot, told her I was happy for her. Bradley shook my hand again, his grip a little too firm, holding on a little too long. A dominance play, as old as time. Drive safe, Clark. That truck looks like it's held together with prayer and duct tape. I smiled. She's gotten me this far. The drive back to Montana gave me 5 hours to think, to plan, to decide how to save my daughter from this predator without destroying her spirit in the process. By the time I pulled into my ranch, the sun was rising again. I sat in my truck for a moment, looking at my simple home. The life I'd built after walking away from billions. The peace I'd found. That peace would have to wait. My daughter needed me even if she didn't know it yet. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Robert Steele, former FBI, now private investigator. One of the few people who knew the truth about my past. He answered on the second ring despite the early hour. Clark, it's been years. I need your help, Robert. It's about Sarah. Say no more. When do you need me? That's when I knew the game was truly on. Bradley thought he was hunting my daughter. He had no idea he'd just become the prey. Robert Steele arrived at my ranch 3 days later, looking exactly the same as when he'd helped me navigate the FBI's white-collar crime unit during the TechCore acquisition. Gray hair, cut military short, sharp eyes that missed nothing, and a handshake that could crack walnuts. Good to see you living the dream, Clark, he said, surveying my modest spread. Though something tells me this isn't a social call. I led him into my study, the one room in the house that hinted at my former life. Multiple monitors, secure servers, encrypted communication systems. Old habits die hard. Listen to this, I said, playing the recording from the country club. Robert's expression darkened with each word. When it finished, he leaned back in his chair and whistled low. Bradley Ashford. I've heard that name before. Nothing I could prove but whispers in the financial sector. You want a full workup? Everything. Financial history, past relationships, family connections. I need to know who we're dealing with. Protective father mode activated? Robert grinned. This is why I liked working with you, Clark. You never do anything halfway. He set up operations in my guest room, transforming it into a miniature intelligence center. Within days, the information started flowing, and the picture it painted was uglier than I'd imagined. Bradley James Ashford, 38 years old, was poison wrapped in an Armani suit. His first wife, Emma Chen, had been a pediatric surgeon when they met. Young, brilliant, trusting. The marriage lasted 3 years. The prenup Bradley had tricked her into signing left her with nothing. Not even the car she drove to work. She now worked 3 jobs to support their son, whom Bradley had abandoned completely. I found Emma, Robert reported one evening. Living in a studio apartment in Queens. Want to know the kicker? Bradley hid assets during their divorce. Claimed poverty while sitting on millions in offshore accounts. Can we prove it? Working on it. But there's more. Wife number 2, Jessica Walsh. Jessica's story was even darker. A successful architect who'd fallen for Bradley's charm. He'd systematically isolated her from family and friends, convinced her to invest her inheritance in his sure-thing deals, then left her when the money ran out. The psychological damage had been severe. She'd spent 6 months in a facility, dealing with severe depression and anxiety. I've got surveillance footage from their divorce proceedings, Robert said, pulling up video on his laptop. Watch Bradley's face when the judge rules in his favor. The smile on Bradley's face as Jessica sobbed was chilling. Pure satisfaction at another successful con. There's a pattern here, Robert continued. He targets successful women with family money or valuable connections. Isolates them, drains resources, then discards them. Your daughter fits the profile perfectly. My hands clenched into fists. What about his current situation? That's where it gets interesting. Bradley's not as wealthy as he pretends. His lifestyle is funded by creative financing and his father's connections. Speaking of daddy, dearest Gerald Ashford is dirty as they come. Robert pulled up financial documents that made my blood boil. Gerald's pharmaceutical company was under federal investigation for price-fixing insulin and other life-saving drugs. Millions in Medicare fraud. Elderly patients dying because they couldn't afford medications that cost pennies to produce. Like father, like son, I muttered. Wait, there's more. Bradley's got a mistress. The photos showed Bradley with a young blonde woman. Expensive restaurants, hotel entrances, intimate moments he thought were private. Cynthia Marshall, 26, aspiring actress, Robert explained. He's been paying her rent through a shell company for 2 years. Monthly transfers of $10,000. While planning to marry my daughter. The wedding's just another business transaction to him. I've got more surveillance if you can stomach it. Over the next weeks, Robert's network of contacts painted a comprehensive picture of Bradley's operation. He was embezzling from high-net-worth clients at his firm, using complex financial instruments to hide the theft. The amounts were staggering. $50,000 here, $100,000 there. Always just below the threshold that would trigger automatic audits. He's smart, Robert admitted. Knows exactly how far to push without setting off alarms. But he's getting greedy. The wedding to Sarah is part of a bigger play. He needs her marketing connections to find new marks. One evening, Sarah called while Robert and I were reviewing documents. Dad, I'm so excited we've set the date. June 15th. Will you be able to make it? Wouldn't miss it for the world, sweetheart. And Dad, Bradley and I were talking. We want to help you out a little. Maybe get you a new truck, some nicer clothes. We know things have been tight since the divorce. My heart broke a little. Bradley was already poisoning her thoughts, making her see me as a charity case. That's kind of you to offer, but I'm doing fine. Are you sure? Bradley says. Well, he worries about you out there all alone. He thinks maybe you should consider selling the ranch, moving closer to us. We could help you find a nice apartment. The manipulation was starting. First, make me seem pathetic, then position himself as the savior. Classic isolation tactics. I'm happy where I am, Sarah, but thank you. After I hung up, Robert looked at me with sympathy. He's moving faster than expected. We need to accelerate our timeline. What else have you found? Bradley's been in contact with a known con artist. Guy named Marcus Webb does investment scams targeting elderly victims. They're planning something for the wedding. I studied the surveillance photos of Bradley and Webb meeting at a coffee shop. Webb looked like Central Casting's idea of a successful investor. Silver hair, expensive suit, predatory smile. Let me guess. Webb poses as a wealthy investor at the wedding targets Sarah's family friends. Bingo. Bradley gets a cut of whatever Webb scores. Your daughter's wedding is going to be a hunting ground. The anger I'd been controlling threatened to boil over. This parasite wasn't just planning to destroy Sarah. He was going to use her special day to victimize others. There's one more thing, Robert said quietly. I had my forensic accountant look at Sarah's finances. Bradley's already started. The documents showed Sarah had opened a joint account with Bradley 2 months ago. She'd transferred her entire savings, almost $200,000 from years of careful investing. Bradley had already moved half to another account, only he controlled. She doesn't even know, does she? I asked. Doubtful. The transfers are disguised as investment moves. By the time she figures it out, the money will be gone. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the mountains. The same peaks that had given me peace for 15 years now seemed to mock my helplessness. What do you want to do, Clark? Robert asked. We have enough to warn Sarah, maybe scare Bradley off. No. If we move now, he'll convince her we're lying. He's too smooth, too practiced. Sarah's in love. She won't believe her perfect fiancé is a monster without absolutely irrefutable proof. So what's the play? I turned back to face him. We let it unfold. But we control the ending. How do you feel about attending a society wedding? Robert grinned. I do own a tux. Good. Because by the time Bradley says I do, we're going to have everything in place to destroy him. Legally, publicly, completely. Now you're talking. What do you need? I pulled up my secure contacts list. Names I hadn't accessed in years. People who owed me favors from my tech days. Judges, federal prosecutors, SEC investigators. We're going to give Bradley exactly what he wants. A society wedding he'll never forget. And then, we're going to take everything from him. His money, his freedom, his carefully crafted image. Everything. Poetic justice. I like it. But Clark, are you prepared for how this might affect Sarah? I thought about my daughter, her joy on the phone, her dreams of happiness, the pain she would feel when the truth came out. She's going to hate me for a while, I admitted. But someday she'll understand. Better a broken heart than a broken life. Robert started packing up his equipment. I'll keep digging. Bradley's got more secrets, I can smell it. Men like him always do. After he left, I sat alone in my study, surrounded by evidence of Bradley's crimes. Each document represented a life destroyed, a woman discarded, a family ruined. I picked up a photo of Sarah from my desk, her college graduation day. So proud, so full of hope. I'm sorry, baby girl, I whispered. But sometimes a father has to do the hard things, even if it means you'll hate me for it. Outside, the Montana wind howled through the valleys. Storm coming. It seemed fitting. Bradley Ashford thought he was the predator in this story. He was about to learn what happens when you threaten a father's daughter. Especially a father with $3 billion and nothing left to lose. 2 months before the wedding, I found myself in a place I'd sworn I'd never return to a law office in downtown Chicago. The building scraped the sky, all glass and steel ambition. But I wasn't there for the architecture. I was there for Judge Marcus Harrison, my college roommate, and the one man who could help me navigate the legal maze I needed to construct. Marcus had aged well, his black robes traded for a tailored suit, now that he was technically on sabbatical. We met in a private conference room with a view of Lake Michigan, the water churning gray under cloudy skies. "Clark Thompson," he said, shaking his head with a smile. "When you disappeared into the Montana wilderness, I thought that was it. And now, here you are, asking about obscure marriage fraud statutes." "It's good to see you too, Marcus. I wish it were under better circumstances." I laid out everything Robert had discovered: the fraudulent marriages, the embezzlement, the con artist partner. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "Bradley Ashford," he said finally. "I've heard that name in judicial circles. Nothing anyone could prove, but prosecutors have been circling. Your evidence might be the break they need." "I need more than prosecution, Marcus. I need to protect Sarah. Is there a way to void that prenup she signed?" Marcus leaned back, fingers steepled. "Fraudulent inducement to marriage. It's rarely used, but if you can prove he entered the marriage with criminal intent, never planning to honor the vows, then yes, the prenup becomes toilet paper. Better yet, Sarah could be entitled to damages." "What kind of proof would we need?" "Documented evidence of his statements before the marriage. Proof of ongoing criminal activity. Evidence that he planned to use the marriage itself to commit crimes." Marcus smiled. "Sounds like you're already building that case." "There's more. I want to catch him in the act. At the wedding itself." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That's risky. Why not move before—" "Because Sarah won't believe it. She needs to see his true face, not just hear about it. And I want him to feel safe, overconfident. Men like Bradley make mistakes when they think they've won." "You always were a strategic thinker. What do you need from me?" "Legal framework, prosecutors on standby, and maybe a few federal marshals who know how to blend in at a society wedding." Marcus laughed. "You're asking me to help you turn your daughter's wedding into a sting operation. I'm asking you to help me save her life." His expression softened. "You know what this could do to your relationship with her?" "I've already accepted that cost." Marcus made some calls. Within an hour, we had a meeting scheduled with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the FBI's white-collar crime division. It seems Bradley had been on their radar for some time. My evidence was the key they'd been looking for. But I needed more than just law enforcement. I needed someone inside Bradley's world. That's when I remembered Thomas Whitfield. Thomas had been a young programmer at TechCore, brilliant but unfocused. I'd mentored him, helped him understand that technology was just a tool. Real power came from understanding people and systems. He'd taken those lessons and built Whitfield Industries into a major investment firm. Bradley's firm, as it turned out. I met Thomas at his penthouse office in Manhattan. The kid I'd known was gone, replaced by a sharp-eyed executive who commanded respect. But when he saw me, his face broke into a genuine smile. "Clark, my God, when security said you were here, I couldn't believe it. I thought you'd sworn off the corporate world forever." "I had, but sometimes the past won't leave you alone." I explained the situation. Thomas's expression went from surprise to disgust to cold fury. "Bradley Ashford works for me." He pulled up personnel files on his computer. "Senior account manager. Exemplary performance reviews. Son of a bitch has been using my firm to run his cons." "I need your help, Thomas." "You have it. Whatever you need. You saved my career once. Hell, you saved my life. That coding boot camp you sent me to, that changed everything." "I need access to his office, his files, and I need someone to monitor his activities without him knowing." Thomas's smile was predatory. "Leave it to me. By tomorrow, I'll have his office wired 6 ways from Sunday. All legal, of course. Employee monitoring for suspicious activity. Standard practice in financial firms." Over the next 3 weeks, the trap came together piece by piece. Thomas's surveillance caught Bradley red-handed, discussing his embezzlement schemes on the phone. He was stealing from elderly clients, hiding the money in offshore accounts, using Sarah's name on some of the paperwork to implicate her if things went wrong. He's setting her up to take the fall. Thomas reported during one of our secure calls. If the authorities investigate, all roads lead back to Sarah. Her signatures on documents she probably never read. The rage I felt could have powered a small city, but I channeled it into cold, methodical planning. Robert's investigation uncovered more dirt. The two ex-wives agreed to cooperate after I offered to help them recover what Bradley had stolen. Emma, the pediatric surgeon, broke down crying when I called. "He destroyed me," she said. "I loved him so much, and he took everything. My son doesn't even have a college fund because Bradley hid all our assets." "We're going to get it back, Emma. All of it, with interest." Jessica the architect was stronger, but still scarred. "He made me think I was going insane. Gaslighting, the therapist called it. Moving things in the house, denying conversations we'd had, telling me I was too emotional to handle our finances. I actually believed him." "You survived," I told her. "That takes incredible strength. Now help me make sure he never does this to anyone else." Both women provided documentation, recordings, witness statements. The case against Bradley was becoming bulletproof. But the real breakthrough came when Thomas discovered Bradley's connection to larger criminal operations. His father, Gerald, wasn't just involved in pharmaceutical fraud. He was connected to an entire network of white-collar criminals. Money laundering, tax evasion, bribery of public officials. The wedding scam with Marcus Webb was just the tip of the iceberg. "This is RICO territory," Marcus said when I shared the findings. "Racketeering. The whole family could go down." "Good. But Sarah comes first. She needs to be protected from any blowback." I set up a trust structure completely legal and transparent, transferring several of my properties to Sarah through a blind trust. She wouldn't know about it until after the wedding, but if things went bad, she'd have resources Bradley couldn't touch. The federal prosecutor assigned to the case was a young woman named Dana Chen, coincidentally Emma's cousin. She'd gone into law specifically because of what happened to Emma. "I've been waiting 5 years for enough evidence to take down Bradley Ashford," she told me. "You've given me more than enough, but I understand you want to do this your way, at the wedding. He needs to show his true colors, publicly, in front of everyone who matters to him." Risky, but I get it. We'll have agents there posing as guests. The moment he commits assault or fraud in front of witnesses, we move. "What about the con artist Webb?" "Already under surveillance. We'll take him down too." As the wedding approached, all the pieces were in place. Federal agents with covers as wedding guests. Thomas and several board members from his firm ready to attend. Marcus would be there as a family friend. The ex-wives' lawyers on standby. But I still needed one more thing. Proof of Bradley's ultimate plan, straight from his own mouth. That's when fortune smiled on me. Bradley, getting nervous about the wedding expenses, scheduled a meeting at his office to discuss moving more money from Sarah's accounts. Thomas made sure I could listen in. "The old man's going to be a problem," Bradley said to someone on the phone. "Yeah, the father. Total embarrassment. But Sarah insists he walk her down the aisle. Don't worry, I've got plans for him. Going to humiliate him at the reception. These country bumpkins fold fast when they're out of their element." "What about after?" the voice asked. 6 months max. I'll have drained her connections, gotten what I need. Then she has an unfortunate breakdown just like Jessica. I know a judge who'll give me everything in the divorce if she's been institutionalized. "Cold, Bradley, even for you. It's just business. Speaking of which, Webb's all set for the wedding. Your aunt still planning to attend? She's our primary target. Worth at least $5 million if Webb plays it right." I saved the recording, adding it to the mountain of evidence. The plan to institutionalize Sarah, to drive her to a breakdown like Jessica, made my blood ice over. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about saving my daughter's sanity, possibly her life. The night before I left for Denver and the wedding, I stood in my study, looking at all the evidence. Boxes of documents, recordings, financial records, witness statements. It was enough to put Bradley away for 20 years, maybe more. But would it be enough to save Sarah's heart? My phone rang. Sarah. Dad, I can't believe the wedding is tomorrow. I'm so nervous and excited. You're going to be beautiful, sweetheart. Bradley's been amazing. He's handled all the stress so well. Oh, and Dad, he mentioned maybe we could go clothes shopping in the morning. He wants you to feel comfortable at the reception. The manipulation was subtle but clear. Make me feel inferior, then offer to fix me. That's thoughtful, but I've got something to wear. Are you sure Bradley knows people at the best shops? He really wants everything to be perfect. I'm sure. Sarah, are you happy? There was a pause. Of course I'm happy. Why would you ask that? Just want to make sure. It's a big step. I love him, Dad. He's everything I ever wanted. The certainty in her voice broke my heart. Tomorrow, that certainty would shatter. But better broken-hearted than broken entirely. I love you, Sarah. Never forget that. No matter what happens, I love you. I love you too, Dad. Get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. After we hung up, I looked at the photo on my desk again. Sarah, at 5 years old, riding on my shoulders, both of us laughing. Back when I could protect her from monsters by checking under the bed and in the closet. Tomorrow's monsters wore designer suits and predatory smiles. But I was still her father. And fathers protect their daughters, even when those daughters don't know they need protecting. Even when it means becoming the villain in their story, so they don't have to be the victim in someone else's. The trap was set. Now all that remained was to spring it. 1 month before the wedding, the pieces on my chessboard were all in position. But chess, I'd learned long ago, is won in the preparation, not just the execution. Bradley thought he was playing checkers. He had no idea we were playing a completely different game. I made the drive to Denver for what Sarah thought was a simple father-daughter lunch. She'd chosen a small cafe near her office, away from Bradley's usual haunts. That should have been my first clue that not everything was perfect in paradise. You look tired, sweetheart, I said, noticing the dark circles under her eyes. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Wedding planning is exhausting. Bradley's mother has opinions about everything. The flowers are wrong. The music is too modern. The menu isn't sophisticated enough. Nothing I choose seems good enough. What does Bradley say about it? Sarah's hesitation spoke volumes. He says his mother knows best about these things, that I should defer to her experience. And you're okay with that? It's just one day, Dad, if it makes his family happy. I wanted to tell her then. Show her the evidence. Make her see that this was just the beginning of a lifetime of being told she wasn't good enough. But I held my tongue. The lessons that stick are the ones we learn ourselves, not the ones we're told. I want you to know something, I said instead, reaching across the table to take her hand. No matter what happens, I'm proud of you. You've built an amazing career, an amazing life. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're not enough. Her eyes welled with tears. Sometimes, I feel like I'm losing myself in all this. Like I'm becoming someone I don't recognize. Then be yourself. The Sarah I raised doesn't need anyone's approval to know her worth. She squeezed my hand. Bradley says I'm too sensitive. That I need to be stronger for the social circles we'll be moving in. Another red flag. Another manipulation. I filed it away with all the others. After lunch, I met with Robert at a secure location. He'd been busy. The ex-wives are fully on board, he reported. Emma's documented everything from their marriage. Financial records, medical records from the stress-induced conditions, even recordings she made during their divorce. She was smarter than Bradley gave her credit for. What about Jessica? Stronger than you'd think. She's been in therapy working through what Bradley did to her. Her therapist is willing to testify about the psychological abuse patterns. Classic narcissistic manipulation leading to induced anxiety disorder. They're brave women. They want to see him burn Clark. What he did to them. It's evil, pure and simple. I'd arranged for financial support for both women quietly and through intermediaries. Emma's son would have his college fund. Jessica would have the resources to rebuild her architecture practice. It was the least I could do for their cooperation. Thomas called with an update from inside Bradley's firm. "He's getting sloppy," Thomas reported. "The wedding pressure is making him careless. He moved another 100,000 from client accounts yesterday. Left a paper trail a blind detective could follow." "Let him. The more evidence, the better." "There's something else. He's been meeting with his father more frequently. Gerald's under federal investigation, and he's getting desperate. Word is, he's planning to flee the country if indictments come down." "When?" "Soon after the wedding, probably taking Bradley with him. This complicated things. If Bradley ran, Sarah would be left holding the bag for his crimes. We needed to move the timeline up. I made a call to Dana Chen, the federal prosecutor. We need arrest warrants ready for the wedding day, I told her. Both Bradley and Gerald. Can you make that happen? With what you've given me, I could get warrants for the entire family. But Clark arresting someone at their wedding, that's harsh. So is destroying innocent women's lives for sport. Fair point. I'll have everything ready. We'll have agents standing by. The next week, I focused on protecting Sarah's assets. Using legal loopholes and my knowledge of financial systems, I moved her inheritance from her grandmother into protected trusts. Bradley couldn't touch them, no matter what happened. I also set up several properties in her name through shell companies, all completely legal and documented. She'd find out about them when the time was right. Margaret, my ex-wife, called unexpectedly. "Clark, I wanted to discuss your attire for the wedding." Even after 15 years, her condescension still stung. "Hello to you too, Margaret. Don't be sensitive. This is Sarah's big day. The Ashfords are particular about appearances. I thought perhaps I could help you shop for something appropriate." "I can dress myself, thanks." "Can you?" "Because showing up in your usual ranch wear would be an embarrassment to Sarah." I said I've got it handled. God, you're still so stubborn. This is why we divorced Clark. You never could accept help. We divorced because she was sleeping with her personal trainer, but I let it slide. Is there anything else, Margaret? Just try not to embarrass our daughter. The Ashfords are important people. This wedding could open doors for Sarah. Or close them permanently. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I'll see you at the wedding. I hung up before she could respond. Margaret had always been impressed by money and status. She'd never bothered to look deeper. It's why she'd never known about the billions I'd made, and gave away to charity keeping, just enough to live simply. She'd thought I was a failure when I walked away from tech. She had no idea I'd walked away richer than the people she now tried so hard to impress. 2 weeks before the wedding, Marcus Webb, the con artist, made his move. He contacted Bradley about finalizing their plan for the wedding. Thomas had the entire conversation recorded. "I'll need a guest list," Webb said. "Focus on the older money, widows especially. They're easiest to manipulate." "Already prepared," Bradley responded. "I've marked the prime targets. Sarah's great-aunt Helen is worth at least $8 million. Liquid assets. Her husband died last year, and she's been looking for investment opportunities." "Perfect. What's my cover?" "Tech investor from Silicon Valley. Made your fortune in AI. Looking to diversify into traditional industries. I'll introduce you a round vouch for you. After that, you work your magic. And my cut. 40% of whatever you score. Just keep it clean. No trails back to me." "Bradley, my boy, I've been doing this since before you were born. No worries." They laughed together, two predators planning their hunt at what should be a celebration of love. I made sure Dana Chen got a copy of the recording. Webb would be arrested the moment he made his move at the wedding. Another trap within a trap. The final week was a blur of preparations. FBI agents were briefed and given their covers as wedding guests. Thomas arranged for several of his board members to attend, all aware of Bradley's crimes, and ready to witness whatever happened. Marcus would be there, along with a few other federal judges who wanted to see justice served. I even arranged a special surprise. Emma and Jessica Bradley's ex-wives would be there, not as guests, but as servers for the catering company. They wanted to see his face when everything collapsed. They deserved that closure. 3 days before the wedding, I had one last meeting with my assembled team in a hotel conference room in Denver. Everyone knows their role. I asked, looking around the room at federal agents, prosecutors, and allies. Nods all around. Dana Chen stood. Arrest warrants are signed and ready. The moment Bradley commits assault or fraud in our presence, we move. Gerald too, if he's there. He'll be there, Robert confirmed. He's giving a toast. Something about welcoming Sarah to the family. Thomas added, I'll make sure Bradley knows I'm there with board members. He needs to feel the pressure, know his professional world is watching. What about Webb? I asked. We've got agents specifically assigned to him, Dana replied. The second he makes his pitch to any guest, he's done. Marcus Harrison spoke up. Clark, I need to ask one more time. Are you sure about this? What Bradley's planning to do to you? It could go wrong. You could get hurt. I thought about the recording of Bradley discussing his plans to humiliate me, to put me in my place, to show everyone that Sarah's father was nothing but a worthless old rancher. Physical pain heals, I said. What he's planning to do to Sarah doesn't. I can take whatever he dishes out. And if Sarah hates you for this, then she hates me. But she'll be alive and free to hate me, not destroyed and discarded like Emma and Jessica. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Robert spoke. For what it's worth, I think you're the bravest man I know. Not many fathers would sacrifice their relationship with their child to save them. It's not brave, I said. It's just what fathers do. The meeting broke up, everyone clear on their roles. Tomorrow, I would drive to Denver for the rehearsal dinner. Then the wedding. Then the showdown. 15 years of simple living hadn't prepared me for what 30 years in corporate warfare had. That night alone in my ranch house, I pulled out my one good suit. Navy blue, well-tailored, but simple. I'd bought it for business meetings I never attended, kept it for occasions that never came. Tomorrow, it would serve its purpose. I also pulled out something else. A watch. Not the Timex I usually wore, but a Patek Philippe, worth more than most people's houses. A gift to myself when TechCore went public. I'd worn it exactly once the day I signed the papers selling my company. Tomorrow, I'd wear it again. Not for show, but as a reminder. A reminder that the man Bradley thought he was humiliating had once commanded boardrooms, had once made decisions that affected thousands of lives, had walked away from more money than the Ashfords had ever dreamed of. The phone rang. Sarah. Dad, I'm so nervous about tomorrow. The rehearsal dinner, then the wedding. It's all happening so fast. Having second thoughts. No, of course not. I love Bradley. It's just wedding jitters, I guess. Sarah, do you remember what I used to tell you when you were little and scared of something? That courage isn't not being afraid. It's being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. That's right. Whatever happens tomorrow and the next day, remember that. Be courageous. Dad, you're being weird. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, sweetheart. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, Dad, I love you. I love you too, baby girl. More than you'll ever know. I hung up and stood looking out at the mountains one last time as a simple rancher. Tomorrow, the mask would come off. The gloves would come off. And Bradley Ashford would learn what happens when you threaten someone under the protection of Clark Thompson. He wanted to humiliate me. Fine. He wanted to destroy my daughter. Never. The war was about to begin, and I'd already won. Bradley just didn't know it yet. The morning of June 15th dawned clear and bright, one of those perfect Denver summer days that made you forget the mountains could kill you in winter. I was up before sunrise, sitting on my hotel room balcony, with a cup of coffee, watching the city wake up. The rehearsal dinner the night before had been its own special form of torture. Bradley's family had made their disdain clear through 1,000 small cuts. The seating arrangement that put me at the far end of the table The jokes about Montana being flyover country. The not-so-subtle suggestions that I must be so proud Sarah was marrying up. Bradley himself had been in full performance mode, the devoted fiancé, the respectful future son-in-law. Only I caught the smirks when he thought no one was looking. The eye rolls when I spoke. The way he'd gripped Sarah's hand just a little too tight when she tried to include me in conversations. But I'd played my part. The simple rancher overwhelmed by the big city sophistication. I'd even worn my old boots with my suit, giving them more ammunition for their mockery. Let them laugh. In a few hours, we'd see who had the last word. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. All teams in position. Webb just arrived at hotel. Gerald confirmed attending. I replied, Roger that. Heading to church soon. The wedding was set for 2 p.m. at St. John's Cathedral, with the reception immediately following at the country club. I arrived at the church early, wanting to check the layout one final time. Sarah was already there with her bridesmaids, the getting ready chaos in full swing. When she saw me, her face lit up. Dad, you look so handsome. I was wearing my navy suit, the Patek Philippe, the only hint of wealth. You look beautiful, sweetheart. How are you feeling? Nervous, excited, scared. Is that normal? Perfectly normal. Marriage is a big step. Bradley's mother, Victoria, swept into the room like a cold front. Oh, Clark, you're here early. Her eyes scanned me up and down, pausing on my shoes. I'd worn dress shoes, but they were 5 years old, and it showed. Well, at least you tried. Mother, Sarah protested. What I'm just saying, he looks presentable, mostly. She turned to me with a smile that could freeze hell. Bradley asked me to speak with you about the reception seating. We've had to make some last-minute adjustments. You'll be at table 12 now with Bradley's father's business associates. I'm sure you'll have things in common. Table 12. I'd checked the layout. It was in the back corner by the service entrance. Maximum distance from the head table. Perfect positioning to humiliate the father of the bride. Whatever works best, I said mildly. Victoria's smile widened, mistaking my calm for defeat. I knew you'd understand. Oh, and Clark Bradley mentioned something about including you in a special toast during the cake cutting. Such a thoughtful boy wanting to honor family traditions. The cake cutting. I'd wondered when he'd make his move. Now I knew. After Victoria left, Sarah took my hand. I'm sorry about her, Dad. She's just particular. Don't apologize for other people's behavior, sweetheart. You're not responsible for them. I know Bradley's family can be a bit much, but they mean well. They just want everything to be perfect. Perfect for them, maybe. I kept that thought to myself. Sarah, I need you to remember something today. No matter what happens, I love you, and I'm proud of you. Not because of who you're marrying or what anyone else thinks, but because of who you are. Her eyes filled with tears. Dad, don't. You'll make me ruin my makeup. I kissed her forehead. I'll see you at the altar. The church filled quickly. 300 of Denver's social elite, all here to see the Ashford heir claim his latest prize. I recognized several faces from Robert's surveillance photos. Potential victims for Webb's investment scam. Elderly widows with more money than sense. Trust fund kids looking for the next big thing. I also spotted my allies. Thomas Whitfield near the front, flanked by 2 board members. Marcus Harrison on the groom's side playing the family friend. Dana Chen in a stunning dress that hid her federal prosecutor badge. FBI agents scattered throughout, looking like any other wedding guests. And there, in catering uniforms, Emma and Jessica. Bradley's ex-wives serving champagne to the people who'd watched their lives get destroyed. The poetry of it was vicious. Gerald Ashford arrived with an entourage, looking every inch the pharmaceutical executive. Expensive suit, expensive watch, expensive wife half his age. He glad-handed his way through the crowd, the consummate politician. No one would guess he was 3 weeks away from federal indictment. Bradley appeared at the altar with his groomsmen. 6 men, cut from the same cloth, all investment bankers and trust fund babies. They whispered and laughed, probably sharing last-minute jokes about the bride's family. The music changed, and the procession began. Bridesmaids in lavender, each step perfectly choreographed. Then the music swelled, and everyone stood. Sarah appeared at the back of the church, and my breath caught. She was radiant. The dress was everything she'd dreamed of, elegant and timeless. But it was her smile that broke my heart. So happy, so trusting, so unaware of the snake waiting at the altar. I offered her my arm. "Ready! Ready!" We walked slowly down the aisle. I felt every eye on us, heard the whispers. Some admiring Sarah's beauty, others, Bradley's crowd, making snide comments about the father of the bride. I kept my eyes forward, focused on the task at hand. At the altar, the minister asked, "Who gives this woman to be married?" "Her mother and I do," I said, the traditional response. I kissed Sarah's cheek, then placed her hand in Bradley's. He gripped it possessively, giving me a look of triumph. "I'll take good care of her," he said loud enough for the front rows to hear. "I'm counting on it," I replied, meeting his eyes. He blinked first. I took my seat in the third row, the designated spot for the bride's father, close enough to see everything, far enough to be dismissed. The ceremony proceeded with all the pomp Bradley's family demanded. Readings about love and fidelity that made me want to laugh, considering the groom had a mistress waiting in the wings. Vows that Bradley recited with practiced sincerity, while probably calculating Sarah's remaining assets. If anyone has any reason why these two should not be joined, speak now, or forever hold your peace, the minister intoned. The church was silent. I held my tongue. Not yet. Let him think he'd won. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Bradley kissed Sarah with a passion that looked real if you didn't know about Cynthia. The crowd applauded. The trap was set. The reception was where things would get interesting. The country club had been transformed into a wonderland of flowers and fairy lights. The Ashford money on full display. I found my table number 12 exactly where Victoria had promised. My tablemates were a collection of Bradley's father's business associates, all competing to see who could ignore me most thoroughly. I didn't mind. It gave me a perfect view of the room. I watched Webb work the crowd, introduced by Bradley as a tech investor with deep pockets. He zeroed in on Sarah's great-aunt Helen within minutes. I saw Dana Chen position herself nearby, ready to move when Webb made his pitch. The dinner proceeded with military precision. 7 courses of food that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Speeches that grew more self-congratulatory with each glass of champagne. Gerald Ashford's toast was a masterpiece of ego, welcoming Sarah to the family like she'd won some sort of lottery. Sarah and Bradley made the rounds greeting guests. When they reached my table, Bradley's smile was sharp as a blade. "Enjoying yourself, Clark? I know this isn't exactly your usual Saturday night." "It's lovely," I said. "You've done a wonderful job." "Well, we wanted everything to be perfect for Sarah. She deserves the best." He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "Even if her family can't quite provide it." Sarah, busy talking to another guest, missed the exchange. "Speaking of family," Bradley continued, "we have a special tradition. During the cake cutting, the bride's father gets the first taste. Hope you're hungry." There it was, the moment I'd been waiting for. "I'm honored to participate in your family traditions," I said. Bradley's grin widened. "Oh, you'll be more than participating. You'll be the star of the show." He moved on, supremely confident. The predator who thought he'd cornered his prey. I checked my phone. A text from Thomas. "Board members in position. Ready when you are." Another from Robert. "Webb just pitched Helen. FBI moving soon." The pieces were converging. I straightened my tie, checked my watch. The Patek Philippe showed 8:45. In 15 minutes, Bradley would call everyone's attention for the cake cutting. In 15 minutes, he would try to humiliate me in front of Denver society. In 15 minutes, his world would end. I signaled a server, one of the regular staff, not Emma or Jessica. "Champagne, please. I'll need it for the toast." The young man brought a glass. I held it up to the light, watching the bubbles rise. Such a celebratory drink. Perfect for celebrating justice. Around the room, my allies were in position. FBI agents near the exits. Thomas and his board members with clear sightlines to the head table. Dana Chen, close to Webb and Aunt Helen. Marcus Harrison chatting with other judges near the bar. And Bradley drunk on his own success, laughing with his groomsmen. Probably sharing the details of what he was about to do. How he would put the old rancher in his place. How everyone would see that Sarah had married up far above her station. The bandleader tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, the bride and groom invite you to gather for the cutting of the cake. 300 guests moved toward the elaborate 5-tier cake. A work of art that probably cost more than a car. Bradley and Sarah stood behind it, picture perfect. Before we cut, Bradley announced, I want to honor a special tradition. In my family, we always have the bride's father take the first taste, to make sure it's sweet enough for his little girl. Polite laughter from the crowd. I stood and made my way forward, every eye on me. Clark, everyone, Bradley announced. Sarah's dad, all the way from, he paused for effect, Montana. More laughter, less polite this time. I reached the cake standing between Bradley and Sarah. My daughter looked confused, but happy. Bradley looked triumphant. Now, Clark. Bradley said loud enough for everyone to hear. I know you're not used to fancy desserts, but don't worry. I'll help you out. He put his hand on my shoulder. I saw Sarah's expression change, sensing something wrong. Bradley, she started. But it was too late. With practiced motion, Bradley grabbed the back of my head and shoved it forward straight into the middle tier of the cake. Try some dessert, beggar, he snarled loud enough for the entire room to hear. The world went white. Vanilla buttercream filled my vision. My nostrils coated my face in sticky sweetness. I heard the collective gasp of 300 wedding guests, the shocked silence that followed violence disguised as humor. Bradley's hand remained on the back of my head for a moment, grinding my face deeper into the cake before releasing me. I straightened slowly, frosting, dripping from my chin, my carefully pressed suit, now a disaster of crumbs and cream. Oops, Bradley said, his voice carrying clearly across the stunned room. Guess the old man can't handle his dessert. His groomsmen erupted in laughter, cruel braying sounds that encouraged others to join in. A few did nervous titters from those who didn't know how else to react. But most remained silent, horrified. Sarah's face had gone pale. Bradley, what did you just do? It's just a joke, babe, he said, still riding high on adrenaline. Family tradition, right? Lighten up. I stood there, frosting in my eyes, maintaining perfect calm. This was the moment. The reveal of his true nature in front of everyone who mattered. I slowly wiped buttercream from my eyes, looking directly at my daughter. I'm okay, sweetheart, I said quietly. Dad, I'm so sorry, I don't know why he… You just assaulted a billionaire, you fool. The voice cracked across the room like a whip. Thomas Whitfield was on his feet, pointing directly at me, his face a mask of controlled fury. The laughter died instantly. Bradley's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Amusement, confusion, the beginning of fear. What? He tried to laugh it off. That's ridiculous. Clark Thompson is the founder and former CEO of TechCore Systems. Thomas announced, his voice filling the silent room. He sold the company for $3.2 billion. I should know. He mentored me when I was nothing. Now, I run Whitfield Industries where you work, Bradley. The color drained from Bradley's face like water from a broken dam. Thomas wasn't finished. The man you just assaulted, the man you called a beggar, has forgotten more about business than you'll ever know. He's also one of the most generous philanthropists in the country, though he'd never tell you that. Because unlike you, Bradley, he doesn't need to broadcast his worth. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Phones appeared as people Googled frantically. The name Clark Thompson and TechCore Systems spreading like wildfire. Gerald Ashford pushed through the crowd. Now wait just a minute. This is obviously some misunderstanding. Sit down, Gerald. Judge Marcus Harrison commanded, stepping forward. Unless you want me to discuss your Medicare fraud indictments in front of all these lovely people. Gerald froze, his mouth opening and closing like a landed fish. I pulled a handkerchief from my pocket, calmly wiping the rest of the frosting from my face. Thomas Marcus, I appreciate your concern, but I'm fine. Bradley was just showing everyone his true character. Weren't you, Bradley? Bradley looked around wildly, seeking support. His groomsmen had stepped back, distancing themselves. His parents stood frozen. Sarah stared at him like she'd never seen him before. I didn't know, he stammered. You never said. Would it have mattered? I asked. Would you have treated me with respect if you'd known about the money? Or would you have just hidden your contempt better? Dana Chen chose that moment to step forward, her federal prosecutor badge now visible. Mr. Ashford. Mr. Gerald Ashford, FBI agents are standing by to discuss some financial irregularities at your firm. I suggest you both come quietly. FBI, someone gasped. The room erupted. Guests backing away. Phones recording. The society wedding of the season becoming a scandal that would feed gossip for years. But I only had eyes for Sarah. She stood by the ruined cake, tears streaming down her face, her fairy tale shattered. Sarah, Bradley reached for her. Don't touch me. Her voice was steel. Don't you dare touch me. Baby, I can explain. Explain what? That you assaulted my father. That you've been lying about who he is. That you've been lying about who you are. Emma chose that moment to appear still in her catering uniform, but standing tall. He's good at lying, aren't you, Bradley? Remember me. Your first wife. The one you left with nothing. Jessica stepped out from the other side. Or me. Wife number 2. The one you tried to have committed. The crowd gasped again. This was better than any soap opera. Bradley's carefully constructed world crumbled in real time. You arranged this, he said, staring at me with dawning horror. You knew. You knew everything. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. Yes, Bradley, I knew. Would you like everyone else to know too? I hit play on the recording from the country club. Bradley's voice filled the room clear as day. She's perfect for the long game. Her mother's family has old railroad money. Not much, but enough. Give me 6 months after the wedding, and she'll cut him off completely. I'm good at isolating wives from problematic family members. Sarah's sob cut through the silence. The recording continued. The prenup already handled. She signed without reading. If things go south, she walks away with nothing. Just like Emma. Just like Jessica. Turn it off, Bradley begged. But I let it play. Let everyone hear his plans to drain Sarah's accounts. His arrangement with Webb to defraud wedding guests. His casual cruelty about putting me in my place. When it finished, the room was tomb silent. By the way, I added conversationally, your friend Mr. Webb is currently being arrested for attempted fraud. Apparently, he tried to sell a bogus investment to Sarah's great-aunt Helen. FBI was very interested in that. Sure enough, through the ballroom windows, we could see FBI agents escorting Webb to a waiting car. Gerald made a break for the exit, but found agents blocking his path. This is entrapment. I'll sue. You'll shut up if you know what's good for you, his lawyer said, appearing from nowhere. Not another word, Gerald. Victoria Ashford, Bradley's mother, found her voice. This is ridiculous. Bradley made a simple mistake. Surely we can... A simple mistake. Sarah's voice cut through her former mother-in-law's words. He married me, planning to destroy me, to steal from me, to discard me like garbage. She turned to me, mascara running wedding dress, stained with tears. You knew all this time, you knew. Since April, I admitted. I heard him planning everything. I tried to think of a way to tell you, but I wouldn't have believed you, she finished. I was so in love, so blind. You weren't blind, sweetheart. You were trusting. There's a difference. Bradley, seeing his world ending, made one last desperate play. Sarah, please. I love you. That recording, it was just talk. Bravado with the guys. You know me. No, Sarah said quietly. I don't know you at all, but I'm starting to. She looked around the room at the shocked faces, the recording phones, the FBI agents. Then she looked at her wedding ring. You know what Bradley keep the prenup. Keep everything you think you've won. Because you're right about one thing, I'm walking away with nothing. Nothing of yours anyway. She pulled off the ring and let it fall into the destroyed cake. But I'm walking away free, and that's worth more than anything you could offer. Thomas Whitfield cleared his throat. Oh, and Bradley, consider yourself terminated from Whitfield Industries. Security will escort you out Monday morning, if you show up at all. You can't do that, Bradley protested. I can, and I just did. Embezzlement tends to violate employment contracts. The FBI agents moved in cuffs, appearing. Bradley Ashford, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. Dad, Bradley called out desperately as they cuffed him. But Gerald was being read his own rights, something about Medicare fraud and racketeering. As they led Bradley past me, he stopped. Even cuffed, even broken, the rage in his eyes was pure. You destroyed me, he hissed. No, I said calmly. You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it. They dragged him away, his protests echoing through the country club. Gerald followed along with several of his associates. Victoria fled, her perfect society world in ruins. The wedding guests stood in shocked clusters, unsure whether to leave or stay. This was Denver's social history in the making. Sarah stood alone by the cake, looking lost. I went to her, opening my arms. She collapsed against me, sobbing. I'm so sorry, baby girl, I whispered. I'm so sorry. Why didn't you tell me? She asked through her tears. Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was a jealous father trying to ruin your happiness? She pulled back, looking up at me with eyes that were sadder but wiser. You're right. I would have chosen him. I would have cut you off just like he planned. And I would have lost you forever. This way it hurts now, but you're free. You're safe. Emma and Jessica approached hesitantly. Sarah, we know we're strangers, but we've been where you are. If you need to talk to understand what happened. Sarah looked at Bradley's ex-wives, seeing her possible futures. Thank you. I think I'd like that. Margaret appeared for once in her life speechless. She looked at me, covered in cake and frosting, but standing tall, and something shifted in her expression. You let him humiliate you, she said softly, to save her. Small price to pay. I owe you an apology, Clark. Several, actually. 15 years worth. No, you don't. We were who we were. But Sarah needed us to be better today. The band leader, bless him, had the presence of mind to start playing soft jazz. The wedding reception that had turned into an arrest scene slowly began to normalize. Guests either leaving quietly or ordering strong drinks at the bar. Marcus Harrison approached with Dana Chen. Clark, we'll need Sarah to testify, but given the evidence, Bradley's looking at 20 years minimum. Gerald, probably more. Sarah straightened, wiping her tears. I'll testify. I want to help Emma and Jessica get their settlements too, and I want everyone to know what he is. That's my girl, I said proudly. Thomas joined us along with his board members. Sarah, I know this is terrible timing, but if you're looking for a new start, Whitfield Industries could use someone with your marketing expertise. And we promise, no workplace predators. She managed a weak smile. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. As the evening wound down, the wedding that had started as a fairy tale and become a nightmare slowly transformed into something else. A liberation. A new beginning. Sarah surveyed the wreckage of her reception. What do I do now, Dad? Whatever you want, I said. You're free. She looked at the cake, Bradley's ring still visible in the frosting. You know what? Let's clean up and have some cake. I paid for it, might as well enjoy it. And so we did. The father of the bride covered in frosting, and his daughter in her stained wedding dress eating wedding cake, while FBI agents finished their work, and Denver society processed the scandal of the decade. It wasn't the wedding anyone had planned, but in its own way, it was perfect. Because sometimes love means letting someone fall so they can learn to fly on their own. And sometimes being a father means becoming the villain in the story, so your daughter doesn't have to be the victim. As we ate cake and Sarah began to laugh through her tears, I knew I'd made the right choice, even if it had cost me a perfectly good suit. The country club had become a crime scene. Yellow tape sectioned off areas where FBI agents collected evidence. The 5-tier cake stood like a demolished monument to deception, my faceprint still visible in the middle tier. But Sarah and I sat at the head table, sharing a slice from the undamaged top tier, finding sweetness in the ruins. $3.2 billion, she asked, shaking her head. You sold TechCore for $3.2 billion and never told me. Would it have changed how you saw me? She considered this. Maybe. Probably. I grew up thinking we were struggling, that the divorce left you with nothing. The divorce did leave me with nothing that mattered. Money couldn't fix that. So I gave most of it away, kept enough to live simply, and focused on what was important. What was that? Being your dad, even if it was just phone calls and occasional visits. Thomas Whitfield approached our table, stepping carefully around an evidence marker. Clark, the board wants to thank you. We've been suspicious of Bradley for months, but couldn't prove anything. Your evidence gave us what we needed. Just protecting my daughter, Thomas. Well, you saved our firm millions in the process. The FBI found records of 17 fraudulent transactions. All our elderly clients he was targeting. He turned to Sarah. That job offer stands by the way. Someone with integrity would be a refreshing change. After Thomas left, Dana Chen joined us, looking satisfied. Preliminary count 43 charges between Bradley and Gerald. That's before we finish analyzing the computer records. Your recording was the key, Clark. Without it, he might have talked his way out. Will he get bail? Sarah asked, worried. Not a chance. Flight risk, given his father's offshore accounts. They'll both be guests of the federal government until trial. Emma and Jessica had changed out of their catering uniforms and stood nearby, unsure if they should approach. I waved them over. Sit, I said. You're not servers anymore. You're guests. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Thompson, what you did for us. The lawyers you hired, the settlement money Bradley hid. We can't thank you enough. You don't need to thank me. You survived him. That took more strength than anything I did today. Jessica nodded. Watching him get arrested, I thought it would feel better, but mostly, I just feel free. Sarah reached across the table, taking both their hands. Thank you for being here, for warning me, for showing me what could have happened. We've started a support group, Emma offered, for women who've been through similar situations. If you'd like to join us. I would, Sarah said firmly. I need to understand how I missed the signs. As they talked, I noticed Margaret approaching. My ex-wife looked older somehow, the events of the evening having washed away her usual perfect facade. May I? She asked, gesturing to a chair. It's Sarah's day, her call. Sarah nodded. Sit, Mom. Margaret sat carefully, her designer dress incongruous among the chaos. I've been a fool, she said quietly. All these years judging you, Clark, thinking you were a failure because you chose simplicity over show. And I pushed that onto Sarah. Mom, Sarah started. No, let me finish. I pushed you toward men like Bradley because I thought wealth and status meant security. I never looked deeper, never asked the right questions. I'm partly responsible for this. You didn't know what he was, I said. Because I didn't want to know. I saw the surface, and that was enough. She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. You gave up billions to find peace. And when our daughter was in danger, you let yourself be humiliated to save her. That's real strength. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. The moment was interrupted by a commotion near the entrance. Webb was being hauled past in cuffs, protesting loudly about entrapment. Behind him, several of Gerald's pharmaceutical executives were getting the same treatment. Judge Harrison appeared, chuckling. Webb tried to claim diplomatic immunity. Apparently, he's the finance minister of a country that doesn't exist. The FBI agent nearly hurt himself laughing. "Aunt Helen?" Sarah asked, concerned. Safe and sound, and thoroughly entertained. She knew Webb was a fraud within minutes, but played along to help the FBI. Apparently, she's sharper than anyone gave her credit for. As if summoned, Great Aunt Helen appeared 90 years old and grinning like a teenager. "Sarah, dear, this is the most exciting wedding I've been to in decades. Much better than your cousin Martha's boring affair." Despite everything, Sarah laughed. "I'm glad someone enjoyed it." "Oh, I'm not the only one." Helen gestured to the remaining guests. "This will be the talk of Denver for years. The wedding where the billionaire father exposed the con artist groom better than any movie." As the evening progressed, something beautiful happened. The disaster transformed into a celebration, not of a marriage, but of narrow escape, of truth revealed, of a father's love and a daughter's strength. The band, after initial confusion, had started playing again. Some guests even danced the surreal nature of the evening, making normal rules seem pointless. The bartender reported record tips as people drank to process what they'd witnessed. Robert Steele found me as things wound down. Clean sweep, Clark. Bradley's laptop had everything. Client lists, offshore accounts, even a detailed plan for draining Sarah's assets. He labeled it Project Payday. "Charming," Sarah said, disgust clear in her voice. "There's more," Robert continued. "We found communications with a psychiatrist. He was planning to gaslight you, make you think you were unstable, then use that for the divorce. Same playbook he used on Jessica." Sarah shuddered. "How did I not see it?" "Because he was good at hiding it," Jessica said, rejoining us. "They always are, until they're not." As midnight approached, the country club staff began quietly cleaning up. The FBI had gotten what they needed. The remaining guests trickled out, each carrying a story that would grow in the telling. Sarah stood in the middle of the empty dance floor, still in her wedding dress. "You know what the funny thing is? I paid for all of this. Every flower, every candle, every plate of overpriced food. Bradley insisted on the best, but made sure I wrote the checks. We can try to recover some of it," Dana Chen offered. "No," Sarah said firmly. "Let it go. It's worth the cost to be free of him." She walked to the cake, studying the destruction. Then, with deliberate calm, she reached into the frosting and pulled out Bradley's ring. 3 carats of lies and manipulation. "Emma, Jessica," she called. "Come here." The 3 women stood together, united by shared experience. This ring represents everything he was. A beautiful lie, hiding an ugly truth. Sarah held it up to the light. "But it's worth about $30,000. I say we sell it and donate the money to women's shelters. Turn his symbol of control into someone else's freedom." Emma and Jessica nodded, tears in their eyes. "I'll match the donation," I said. "Triple it, actually." "Make that double the triple," Thomas added. "Whitfield Industries believes in supporting survivors." Within minutes, pledges had raised the donation to over $500,000. Bradley's ring would help dozens of women escape their own versions of him. As we prepared to leave, Sarah hugged me tight. "Thank you, Dad. For everything. For letting him humiliate you. For gathering evidence. For loving me enough to let me hate you if necessary." "You could never hate me for long," I said. "You're too smart for that." "What happens now?" she asked. "I was supposed to be on a honeymoon, starting a new life." "You still are starting a new life. Just not the one you planned. And that's okay. The best adventures are usually the unexpected ones." Margaret joined us for the walk out. "Clark, I know we've been divorced for 15 years, but would you consider having coffee sometime? I feel like I never really knew you." "Coffee would be nice," I agreed. "But I'm still just a rancher in Montana. That hasn't changed. Maybe that's exactly what I need to understand better." Outside, the June night was warm and clear. Denver spread out below us, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. My old pickup truck sat in the parking lot, surrounded by luxury cars, looking perfectly at home. "That's your truck?" Sarah asked. "The one Bradley mocked?" "Reliable, simple, and paid for in cash. Everything Bradley wasn't." She laughed. Really laughed for the first time all evening. "Can I come stay with you for a while?" "At the ranch, I need to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be someone else's version of perfect." "You're always welcome. Fair warning, though, it's actual work. Horses don't care about your designer shoes." "Good. I'm tired of caring about things that don't matter." As I drove home that night, Sarah following in her car, I thought about the evening's events. Bradley would spend the next 20 years in federal prison. Gerald would die behind bars, his pharmaceutical empire dismantled. Victoria would flee to Europe, her society standing destroyed. But Sarah would heal. She would grow. She would learn to trust her own judgment again. And she would do it surrounded by people who loved her, for who she was not what she could provide. The cake on my suit had dried to a crusty mess. I'd probably never get it clean. But every time I looked at that ruined suit, I'd remember the night I let a small man try to make himself big by making me small, and how his own cruelty brought him down. 2 weeks later, Sarah and I sat on the porch of my ranch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. She'd traded her designer clothes for jeans and boots. Her hands had calluses from real work. Her face had color from the sun, instead of expensive makeup. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what you said that night. About courage being doing the right thing even when you're scared." "What about it?" "You were courageous. Letting Bradley humiliate you, knowing you could have destroyed him with a word. That took more courage than anything I've ever seen." "It wasn't courage," I said. "It was love. And love makes us do things that look crazy from the outside, but make perfect sense from the inside." "I want to learn that kind of love," she said. "The kind that protects without controlling, that sacrifices without keeping score, that lets people find their own truth, even when it hurts to watch." "You're already learning," I told her. "Every day you choose to heal instead of becoming bitter, you're learning." A year later, Sarah stood in a courtroom testifying against Bradley. She spoke clearly and honestly about his deceptions, his plans, his cruelty. Emma and Jessica sat in the gallery, offering silent support. Bradley in orange jumpsuit and shackles looked nothing like the golden boy who'd smashed my face into a wedding cake. Prison had worn away. His polish revealed the small, mean soul beneath. When the judge read the verdict guilty on all counts, Bradley finally looked at me. Really looked at me. And in his eyes, I saw understanding at last. He'd thought I was weak, because I chose simplicity. He'd thought I was poor, because I didn't display wealth. He'd thought I was nothing, because I didn't need everyone to know I was something. He'd been wrong about everything. 25 years to life. The judge called it one of the most egregious cases of financial and emotional abuse she'd ever seen. As they led him away, Sarah squeezed my hand. "It's over." "No," I said. "It's just beginning. Your real life. The one where you know your worth doesn't depend on anyone else's validation." Today, Sarah runs a nonprofit helping women escape financial abuse. She learned to spot the Bradley Ashfords of the world and teaches others the warning signs. Emma and Jessica are her partners, turning their pain into purpose. She never remarried, but she found love, real love based on respect and truth, rather than manipulation and lies. A park ranger who makes her laugh and doesn't care that she once had a society wedding that ended in FBI arrests. Margaret and I became friends finally. She learned to see value beyond bank statements. I learned to forgive old wounds. We'll never be what we were, but we're better than we were. And me, I still live on my ranch in Montana. Still drive that old pickup truck. Still wear boots that have seen better days. The only difference is that now when I go to Denver to visit Sarah, nobody mistakes simplicity for poverty. Because true wealth isn't what you display. It's what you're willing to sacrifice for the people you love. And the sweetest revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's helping your daughter become strong enough that no enemy can ever destroy her again. To those watching or listening to this story, I want to ask you, have you ever had to choose between being right and being loving? Between protecting someone and letting them learn their own lessons? How did you find the courage to do what was needed, even when it meant being seen as the villain? Share your stories in the comments below. Like this video if it touched your heart. Subscribe to hear more stories of triumph over deception. And share this with anyone who needs to remember that sometimes the greatest love looks like letting go. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May you always have the courage to see past the wedding cake to the truth beneath. And may you always choose love, even when love means letting someone hate you long enough to save themselves. Until next time, remember your worth isn't measured by what others think of you, but by what you're willing to endure for those you love. God bless and stay strong.